Okay, so what we're going to start with today is, I know you're all getting into exam mode, so we're going to do revision, like a different topic for each of our days from now. So today we're going to focus on equations, and then on Thursday with Sam, you're going to do exponents and surds, and we're going to kind of move our way through them like that. And we'll do one on trig and one on functions and see how we go as the lessons go on. Okay, so today's revision lesson day is on equations. So this will always be like those nice first questions at the start of our exam. I've given you an idea of a mark allocation here, so you know what you would be getting for each of them. But in the first question, all we need to do is solve for x. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to try and figure that out yourselves, and then I will happily talk you through this and maybe give you some tips and tricks along the way. But give it a go first by yourselves. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more minutes and then let's talk. Well, you're going to have to find out, Abu. Let's see if you get 3 marks or not. Rusty at algebra, that's why we're doing it, so that we are no longer rusty. We haven't done these sections in a long time. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, let's give this one a go. So what we have here is we have a cubic equation because we've got a cube over there. So that means that 3 is telling us that we're going to get 3 answers for x. So what we have is a cubic equation. And you're going to do lots of cubic equations next year in matric. Now, the good thing is that we haven't learned anything more complicated for cubes. So we know the only thing we could do here is take out a highest common factor. So we're going to factorize. So we're going to take out our x, and we would be left with x squared minus 2x minus 63. And all of that is equal to 0. And then we're going to do our trinomial over here. So we're going to work with inside that bracket. We're going to have x and then x plus 7, x minus 9. Again, if you're not great with your trinomials, you're always welcome to use the quadratic formula anytime you want. And that's going to be equal to 0. So now we have our three answers for x. We have this one, so x is equal to 0, or we have this one, x plus 7 is equal to 0, which means x equals -7, or we have this last one, x minus 9 equals 0, therefore x equals 9. So we have our three different answers for x. Now for this one, the way that the marks would work is you would get a mark for taking out your highest common factor. You'd get a mark for doing your trinomial factorization, and then you would get 1 mark for all three answers. So if you've missed out one of the answers, you wouldn't get that last mark. Because a very common place is people forget about this dude, and they forget about that x is equal to 0. Okay, feel free to take a screenshot if you would like. Okay, so that was our first equation for the night. 1.1.2. There is a clue here. As soon as the question says correct to 2 decimal places and you're dealing with a quadratic, that is a big signal that it's asking you to use the quadratic formula. So as soon as it says to 2 decimal places, it's like a clue for your brain to say, I need to use the quadratic formula here. And so my first step is going to be to get this into its standard form. So I first want to get it into its standard form. And then I want to use my quadratic formula. That is my advice. So for 4 marks, let's see how this one goes. Boo's just working on super speed today. Hope you're ready for the next one, Abu. The next one is worth 7 marks. I'm not doing it all just yet. I'm just going to talk about the standard form. So for standard form, I've got 2x plus 2 is equal to 3x squared. Okay. So I'm going to multiply this 2 in, and I'm going to have 2x plus 4 is equal to 3x squared, which means 0 is equal to 3x squared minus 2x minus 4. Now, the reason that step is important is because it shows us what our a value is, what our b value is, and what our c value is. So now I know a is 3, b is -2, and c is -4. And then it's easy for me to stick that into the formula. 3-hour IT paper. That sounds gross. I know I say this to you all the time, but I'm so glad I'm not a student anymore. I'd be so bummed out. Okay, so from here, we're going to just chuck it into our quadratic formula. So x is going to be equal to -2 plus or minus square root -2 squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And we pop that into our calculator. So we land up with x is equal to 2 plus or minus root 52 over 6. This is just a little piece of advice that I like to give my students. I always suggest simplifying inside the root. So simplify inside the root. Because it makes it clear that we're going to have the two answers. So we're going to have 2 plus root 52 over 6, and then we're going to have 2 minus root 52 over 6. And if we don't do that simplification, sometimes we forget that there's going to be two answers. So that's just my advice. Take it or leave it, up to you. And then we get our two answers. So x is equal to 1,54, or x is equal to -0,87. And they have to be to 2 decimal places if you want to get all of the marks. So this one is out of 4 marks. You would get 1 mark for putting it in standard form. You would get 1 mark for showing the substitution inside the quadratic formula. And then you would get 1 mark for each of those answers. Okay. Please feel free to take screenshots. Okay. Oh, this isn't 10 marks. 10, I'm lying by saying it's 10. It's a lie. Lies and deceit. 7. All right. 7 marks for this dude. My advice is first tackle these guys. So, for example, as soon as we see an X is not in front, that should be a little clue that we need to do a switcheroo. Over here, we could do a trinomial. So that's my first piece of advice, is simplify your denominators. Get them into brackets that look a little bit more friendly. And then we can go from there. So I'm just going to help with the first line, just in case anyone's struggling. I don't want you to be panicking. So like I said, that clue should be that we're doing a switcheroo. So I'm going to keep the 2x minus 1 over x plus 5. I'm going to keep that the same. Now, when I do a switcheroo, I change the sign and I switch around those values. So that negative is going to become a positive because it's a switcheroo. And I'm going to have a 2 over x minus 2. Now I've done my switcheroo. I'm going to put these in brackets just so that they look a little bit nicer. That's over 4x minus 2. And then I've got minus 14 x plus 5, x minus 2. And now it's not nearly as scary because now I can see, oh, my common denominator is x plus 5, x minus 2. So you'll be able to see where you are going right or wrong from there. And at this point, you would have gotten 1 mark for doing the correct switcheroo and 1 mark for doing the correct trinomial down there. So you'd be sitting on 2 marks just for getting to that point there. I'll give you a bit more time to try and finish this one off. Just keep plodding through this question. I promise you'll get to the end of it. Give yourself time. Where is there an x squared? An x squared is why? Why is it x squared? There's an x squared because the question is out of 7 marks, Abu. It's a meaty question. But x squared's not scary. It just means I'm going to have 2 answers. That's all. Okay, I'm gonna step in here before we have any more damage that happens. My advice in these questions is look at what you have in the denominator and what your common denominator is, and then think about what you need to add. So at the moment, I've got the x plus 5, but I don't have the x minus 2. So I'm going to take my 2x minus 1, and I'm going to multiply it by what I didn't have. So I'm going to multiply it by my x minus 2. Okay, cool. Next one. I've got a 2. Here, I've got x minus 2. So I've got this one, but I don't have the x plus 5. So I'm going to multiply that by x plus 5. That's equal to 4. Here I have x minus 2, but I don't have x plus 5. So I'm going to multiply that by x plus 5. And here I have both. So I can just keep that as minus 14. Once we've done that, we can drop that denominator, because as soon as we're in an equation where we have the same denominator on all fractions, we're allowed to drop it. So if we do it this way, it stops it from being a fraction nice and early, which makes it a little bit less scary to deal with. Then I'm just going to go back into yellow from here, or orange, as you guys have been calling it. I'm just going to multiply everything out. So I'm going to do my FOIL over here. So we're going to have 2x squared minus 4x minus x plus 2. I'm going to do my distribution here. Plus 2x plus 10 is equal to 4x plus 20 minus 14. Okay. I'm going to simplify, so I'm going to move everything onto one side and deal with my x's and my x squareds. So if we have a look here, we've got 1x squared, so only x squared, but we have x, and we have an x, and we have an x, and we have an x, and we have lots of constants that we can work with. So when I simplify this, we land up with 2x squared minus 7x plus 6 is equal to 0. Ooh, very, very close. But not quite right. Tebogo, you're even closer than Abu, but also not quite right. Let's see. So if I do my trinomial over here, I'm going to have 2x minus 3 and x minus 2 is equal to 0, which means that 2x is equal to 3. So x is equal to 3 over 2, or x is equal to 2. But if we go all the way to the beginning and we look at our restrictions, x is not allowed to equal -5 and x is not allowed to equal 2. Those are my restrictions. Because otherwise it would be undefined. So x is not allowed to equal 2. It is only allowed to equal 3 over 2. So you would get a mark for getting your denominator multiplied out the way you need it, a mark for getting to your standard form, a mark for factorizing again, a mark for the 3 over 2, and a mark for saying it's not equal to 2. And that is your 7 marks for that giant question. Five is better than none. 5 is better than none. And that is why we do these questions, so that you've seen them, and then when they come up in your exam, you're like, oh, I know what to do. I'm not stressed. Okay. 6 marks. I really want to give you guys a hint here. I'm not going to say the hint that I want to say. I'm going to do that. Wait, hold on. There's a small error here. Cross multiply is not what I was thinking. do we do when we have the same term in multiple places? Abu, you used to love these. My clue is a letter. Okay, Tebogo got there. K method. Exactly. When we have the same term in multiple places, we're going to use the K method. So we're going to make x squared minus 3x equal to K. That's why I was shocked. Abu used to love K so much. We should get 4 answers here. So if you don't get 4 answers, something has gone wrong. Two more minutes. I mean, you don't have to. You can. But the most important thing is that none of them are restrictions. So if we have a look here, just gonna get rid of this one over here for a second. If I had to look at what my restrictions are, you're just looking at your denominator, right? So my denominator is x squared minus 3x, which would be x minus 3. So my restrictions are that x cannot equal 0 and x cannot equal 3. So as long as none of your answers are 0 or 3, then you don't need to worry. All right. So step one, we're going to use k. So we're going to say let x squared minus 3x equal k. So k is equal to 8 over k plus 2, which means k squared is equal to 8 plus 2k. So k squared minus 2k minus 8 equals 0. And then we're going to do a trinomial. So k plus 2, k minus 4. So k is equal to negative 2, or k is equal to 4. Okay, that's step one. Step two, we now need to go back to the fact that we said that that is k. So now we're going to make these k, because we're not looking at what k is. We're trying to find out what x is. So then we need to bring k back in. So x squared minus 3x is equal to negative 2, or x squared minus 3x is equal to 4. Get them both into standard form. And x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0. We're going to do a trinomial on both of them. So we're going to have x minus 1, x minus 2, and x minus 4, x plus 1. So then my four answers are going to be x is equal to 1, or x is equal to 2, or x is equal to 4, or x is equal to negative 1. And then we have a look over here at what our restrictions are. None of them are 0 or 3. 1, 2, 4, negative 1. So we're good. Hello, welcome. Now, for this one, the marks are a little bit sassy. So let me show you where you would get your marks. You would get a mark for getting it to this point over here. So your k squared minus 2k minus 8, you would get a mark there. Get a mark for doing your factorization. You would get a mark for putting both of them in the standard form. You would get a mark for having k is equal to negative 2 or k is equal to 4. A mark for factorizing both, and 1 mark for all 4 answers. And that is your 6-mark question. But get ready, because the next one is also 6 marks. So they aren't, well, there are, the restricted numbers here would be 0 and 3, and none of our answers are 0 or 3. So we're okay. Yeah, 1 for 4. I told you, the marks are sassy for this one. Okay. For those of you who arrived a little bit later, just so that you know what's going on, is that we're going to be doing revision from now until the end of November, which is when our lessons end. So we've got 8 lessons to do revision. We're going to do one topic on each one of them. So today is equations. Thursday, you're going to do exponents and surds. You're going to do that with Sam. On Saturday, I'm going to see some of you for the boot camp. We're going to finish up our week 3 boot camp stuff. And then next week, Tuesday and Thursday, we'll keep on going as we are. So hopefully we can get you as ready for your exams as you can be. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Gross. Boho and Uyanda, you can suffer together. So in this situation, we don't want to have a denominator anymore. And we want to try and isolate our surd so that we can square it so that we don't have a surd anymore. Our goal is to square the surd. That is the goal. So that it goes away. Just do your best. Keep on plodding. Just for those who are struggling, I'm going to go through the first step over here. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I want to get rid of that denominator because it's kind of in my way. So I'm going to have 2 root 5 minus 2x minus 8 is equal to x. And then I want to isolate this because that's my third term. So I'm going to have 2 root 5 minus 2x is equal to 8 plus x. And now that it's been isolated, we can square both sides. So now I'm going to square both sides. I'm just going to put a bracket around both of them and square them. So over here, I land up with a 4, 5 minus 2x. And this side, I'm actually just going to write out that bracket twice so that we don't make the mistake of saying 64 plus x squared, because we don't want to make that mistake. So I'm going to do my distribution over here. And here I'm going to do my FOIL. And then I'm going to move everything to one side so that I can have a simplified equation. So I'm going to have x squared plus 24x. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Plus 44 is equal to 0. So I'm going to do my trinomial, x plus 22 and x plus 2 equals 0, which means x equals negative 22 or x equals negative 2. Now with the surd ones, we don't have restrictions. So when we have a surd equation, we have to check. It's part of the process. So you have to check your answers. And when you check your answers here, you should see that x cannot equal negative 22. So marks for this dude is you would get a mark for multiplying out that 2. So the 2 minus 8 when you've got to that stage. You get a mark for showing that you know how to square. You would get a mark for probably, where would you get a mark for? You definitely get a mark for the 4 and then 5 minus 2x. And then I suspect you would only get your next mark here once you've done the standard form. And then you would get a mark for factorizing again and 1 mark for the correct answer. So Uyanda, where you test is you just pop it into the equation. You can choose either one. I normally like to use the one that I've simplified a little bit over here. So I would say 2 root 5 minus 2x minus 8. And then I know that that needs to equal x. So when you sub in x equals negative 22 over there, it needs to equal negative 22 over there. And you'll see that it doesn't. But you can sub it into any point of the equation. Okay, cool. Next, everyone's favorite. You're guaranteed to get one of these, absolutely guaranteed. It will be in everyone's paper one. You will get a simultaneous equation and it will be worth 6 marks. I'm telling you flat out straight that's going to happen. My advice for this one would be here to isolate y. That's my advice. And it'll make your lives a little bit easier. But I'll give you some time to work through this one because it is a meaty question. Okay, 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. I wouldn't say that it seems perfect. But I see some things that I like. I think you've done an addition error somewhere. You've left off your +6 at the end of your top row, where you've got your 2x squared plus 4x, and you've left off that +6. Okay, that looks better. Okay, so my advice would be to isolate y. So I would say 2y is equal to 8x minus 8. And then I'm going to divide all of that by 2. So I'm going to have 4x minus 4. So I have y is equal to 4x minus 4. That's what I'm going to end up with. Now I'm going to use this dude over here, and I'm going to sub it in wherever I have a y. So I'm going to have my 2x squared plus 4x is equal to 4x minus 4 all squared plus 6. And for those of you who couldn't get there, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that while I turn on the lights. I will be right back. Felt like a little troll sitting here in the dark. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this out. So 2x squared plus 4x is equal to, I'm going to write this bracket out twice so I don't make that mistake, plus my 6. So 2x squared plus 4x is equal to 16. X squared minus 32x plus 16 plus 6, which when I simplify gives me 14x squared minus 36x plus 22, which is equal to 0. And then I can do my trinomial. It's quite a nasty one, so it would be a good one to use your quadratic formula for. 7x minus 11. Oh, let's first divide this all by 2. 7x squared minus 18x plus 11. So 7x minus 11, x minus 1 is equal to 0, which means x is equal to 11 over 7, or x is equal to 1. And then we just sub it back in over here to get our y values. So y is equal to 4 times 11 over 7 minus 4, which gives us 16 over 7, or y is equal to 4 times 1 minus 4, which is equal to 0. So there are our 4 answers. Marks for this one. You would definitely get a mark for doing the substitution of your simplified y. So you would get a mark for that. You'd get a mark for getting this one to the standard form, a mark for dividing him by 2, a mark for factorizing. What are we on? 2, 4, a mark for your 2x values, and a mark for your 2y values. Yay. One of your favorite types of questions is up next. And have some grumpy faces, I think. The roots of a quadratic equation of f of x is equal to 0 are given by, and they've given you your little equation, for which values of x, of k, will x be real? So for which values of k is up at the top, is inside here, there's k. Which values of k will x be real? Think about what we have to, in order for it to be real, think about what that means. Or maybe what's easier to think is what makes it non-real. For a value to be non-real, it means that whatever is under our square root sign needs to be a negative. Then it's a non-real number. Good. So if I wanted this to be real, then what I have under my square root sign needs to be greater than 0. So I know that 400 minus 48k needs to be greater to or equal to 0. So I'm going to just move my negative 48k needs to be greater or equal to negative 400. When we divide by a negative and we're in an inequality, that sign needs to flip. So I'm going to have, k needs to be smaller or equal to 25 over 3. When we divide by a negative in an inequality, what am I writing? We gotta flip the sign. So remember, if I had negative 2x, is less than 10, then x is going to be greater than -5. So I have to flip that because I've divided by a negative. So I'm flipping this dude over here. (2.1.2), write down the largest positive integer value of k for which the roots will be rational. If k was 9, Abu, what would you get if you popped it into a calculator? I don't think you would get a nice answer. From just your square root sign? Okay, yeah, it would be irrational. So if I want something to be rational, it means that whatever is in my square root sign needs to be square rootable. So for example, a rational number, the square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 1 is 1. Those are all rational numbers. If I had the square root of 2, that's not going to be a number that I can work out. So the square root of 2 is going to give me a whole lot of decimals. It's going to give me 1,4, 1, blah, 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 blah. That means that it is irrational. So what this is asking for is what is the biggest number that k could be in order for this to be a rational number? Okay, cool. We already know some things. So we know that k has to be smaller than, what this is saying is it has to be smaller than 8,33. That is our clue. So the absolute biggest whole number that k could be is 8. So let's try and see what happens when we use 8. If we do the square root of 400 minus 48 times 8, you should get a nice little number of 4. And because you get a nice whole number, that would be the biggest number. So therefore, 8 would be the answer. And the key was to use this dude over here. That's why it was only 1 mark. Yay, Abu, I will take that win. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. We won't have time for all of these. I'm just trying to be selective. Yeah, okay. Let's try this roots one. Let's end here. So what we're looking at is we've got 3p squared x squared minus 2px minus 5, and all of that is equal to 0. Okay. And they're wanting to know what the nature of roots would be of this equation. So when we're talking about nature of roots, we're saying, are they real or non-real? Are they equal? Are they rational or irrational? That's what we're asking when we're talking about roots. So the key here is that you've got an A value, you've got a B value, and you've got a C value, which means you can do B squared minus 4AC to look at what your roots are. And that's going to tell you what your roots are. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes on this one, and then I'll talk you through it. You're on a good track, Abu. But then it went a little bit sideways. Here we go. I'll take that. So first step is let's figure out what our B squared minus 4AC is. So what our delta value is. So that's going to be negative 2P squared minus 4 times 3P squared times negative 5. Okay. So my delta value is going to be 4P squared plus 60P squared, which gives us 64P squared. Okay. That's a big bulk of what we have to work out. Cool. Now we've got to think about what the rest of the question is saying. It says, determine the nature of roots for the equation for all rational values of P. Okay. So if we have to have a rational value of P, what would we do at this point now? What could we do? If it's rational? Yeah. So what we would say here is that if, for example, if P was equal to 0, then our roots would be real and rational and equal, because we'd only have one answer. We'd have 8 as our answer. And if P is not equal to 0, then it would be real, rational, and unequal. That's what we would say. So we're just looking at this dude over here and trying to figure out if P was something. So if P was 0, I would just be looking at 64, right? Square root of 64 is 8. 8 is real, it is rational, and it is equal because there's only one answer. If P is not equal to 0, so let's say P was equal to, oh, sorry, that would be 0. If I had P is equal to 1 or P is equal to 2 or P is equal to 3, I'm going to get 2 different answers for X. Bit of a mean question. What I will do for you guys though, where is P in all that you're saying? This is P over here, that P value. So basically they're asking us what the nature of roots are for rational values of P, right? But there's going to be 2 different answers. So if P was 0, because it would be 64 times 0 squared, which would just be 0. So the square root of 0 is 0. Then my roots would be real, rational, and equal. But if P is not equal to 0, then they're going to be real and unequal. Yes? No? Sad? Happy? Yeah. Don't stress about it too much. Even if you can just get to this point over here, you've gotten yourself a solid mark. So that's better than nothing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save these notes and I'll share them on Google Classroom with you. And then I will also share the questions that we worked through. And there were 2 questions we didn't get to. So I'll post those memos as well. So you've got it all. But otherwise, have a beautiful Tuesday, not Thursday, boo. And I will see you guys. Well, I won't see you on Thursday. Sam will see you on Thursday. I will see some of you on Saturday. Bye, everyone. Bye.